Welcome to the 128th episode, ladies and gentlemen, to Silicon Zombies. Super excited. We demystify emerging tech with the best brains from the Bay and beyond. Beautiful. We are here at the exquisite Park James Hotel. So grateful to have them as a sponsor. Thank you, Human, for joining us. We've got Justin, we've got Olivia. Tonight is going to be so remarkable. Before we get started, quick shout out to our sponsors, Nicodex. So if you're building a product, be it web or mobile, go to nicodex.com. We'll have their information in the show notes. And if you are looking to drive revenue or visibility or growth, be sure to check out Primero Negocios. So that's Primero Negocios and Nicodex. Grateful for these guys. Well, maybe to kind of get the ball rolling here, we can have some quick introductions. Human, you want to kick us off?
Yeah. So we want to know who the heck you guys are. Olivia, we'll start with you, and feel free to humble brag.
Humble brag. Is this on?
Yeah, we got to do this.
All right.
Perfect.
I mean, I got a loud voice. I can definitely project. Well, it's great to be here tonight, guys. My name's Olivia Gambelin. I am what you call an AI ethicist, if you've ever heard of one. But that essentially means I work on embedding human values into artificial intelligence. I am also the author of the lovely book that you're seeing float around. Which,
Day one, congratulations.
Congratulations.
which was officially released to the US market today. So thank you all for being here to celebrate with me. But I work with leaders and executives in terms of training and strategy when it comes to creating AI strategies based on responsible foundations that are reflective of human impact. So technical innovation for human impact at the end of the day. I'm also the founder of a company called Ethical Intelligence. We're a collective of responsible AI practitioners. We've been around for 5 years, so we have seen the dips and flows and ebbs of everything of this industry. Talk to us. We have plenty of horror stories and some really great exampos too of things gone well. Awesome. Is that enough of a humble brag?
It is.
You have more.
I have one question though, just give us an idea of who you advise.
Well,
The list.
the list. Okay, I'm gonna stay in abstract here because we could be here the entire night.
Right.
But I have advised and I work with companies all the way from Fortune 100 to Series A startups to investors to public industry. It's everyone and everything in between. The thing that I do is I work on human values, and that applies across the board to anyone and everyone. So the common denominator are values and artificial intelligence. If you use AI, if you're building AI, and if you are human, then I am your gal.
What if you're human?
Well, especially human.
I was waiting for that.
And Justin, please.
Sure. My name is Justin Lokitz, and I'm a friend of Olivia's.
Well, I'm a colleague at this point.
And I suppose we're colleagues too. And I run the MBA in Design Strategy program, which is an MBA program at an art school, California College of the Arts. It's a 120-year-old art school, and we have an MBA program, which is strange and fun and wonderful. I also teach at that same program. I'm also a best-selling author in innovation and strategy books, and I've been consulting and running and building businesses for a long time. So here we are. Yeah.
Amazing. You want to ask the first question?
I would love to.
All right.
So at the very beginning of this book, there's a short story, and we all love stories. And it has to do with a hammer and a nail and a couple students. I was hoping you could kick us off and light the candle with this thing.
Absolutely. So this is the story of two carpenters, and I use this story quite often to explain how I teach about ethics. So essentially, you have two carpenters, and they're training to be carpenters. Pretty simple, right? One of the first things that you need to learn how to do in carpentry is how to hammer a nail. This is like Carpentry 101, right? Now, the first carpenter is taught the action of hammering the nail. So they're given the hammer, they're given the nail, and they're taught you use the front part of the hammer to hit this top little part of the nail, and that will push it into the wood. They're taught an action. The second carpenter, though, is taught the tool. They're taught what the hammer does, how to use the hammer to manipulate different physical forces. Now, great first day of lessons, they come back and they say, okay, we need to test if you were paying attention. You know, this is rocket science here, but we need to test that you were paying attention yesterday. So both carpenters are given a block of wood, a hammer, and a nail, and asked, please hammer the nail. No problem. Both of them pick up the hammer and the nail. No problem. We got it. Done. Then they're asked, well, can you please remove the nail from the block of wood? The first carpenter wasn't taught that action. They don't know that you can flip over the hammer and actually pull out the nail. They were only taught the action. The second carpenter, though, was taught the tool. And so they say, yeah, of course, no problem. They flip over the hammer, pop out the nail. They were taught the tool. What this has to do with ethics and artificial intelligence, the way that I teach ethics is like the second carpenter. I'm not here to teach you or to talk about specific actions. There are thousands upon thousands of ways to embed ethics and embed our values into artificial intelligence. What I do is I focus on how to teach you and train you on using ethics as a tool so that whatever scenario you walk into, you can flip the hammer over and pull out the nail, no problem.
So is the nail your values in that scenario? Or
You know, I never thought of the metaphor that way.
yeah, okay.
So now I feel like it should be.
No, I think it's in here. And
It's
in
like,
your hand.
okay, it's in there, it's in there.
All right, so I'm looking at the first question. What we agreed to.
Ready.
The narrative is not doom and gloom. How do you see ethics as the framework for innovation?
So, these poor guys had to get on so many different prep calls with me.
It was actually pretty fun.
It was actually really fun. They're not that bad. But the reason being is I sat down with them and I said, you guys, there's so many doom and gloom conversations around ethics, around AI. There's fear, there's this confusion. And one of the things that I've always loved about the Silicon Zombies podcast is there's different conversations here. There's ones that you find that you're not going to find anywhere else. So part of that was, all right, how do we kick off this conversation in a completely different direction that a lot of people aren't used to hearing? Hence, innovation. So you're probably used to hearing about ethics used as a risk mitigation tool, something that safeguards against harms in AI. What is a little known fact, and hopefully a better known fact, because it's all in the book, is that ethics can be used as an innovation practice. Specifically, responsible AI is a practice in innovation. It's when you are using values as constraints on your creativity to drive stronger innovation and stronger impact at the end of the day. So the whole direction that we wanted to kick off tonight with was that hopeful note, that creative note, that we can actually embody and use these values and push us on a new horizon of innovation in this new era of AI.
Okay, since we did start off on the positive note, so let's balance that out. I have a question for Justin.
Oh, only the bad question.
Only
Okay,
the bad
good.
question for you.
Doom, I'm bad cop. I love it. Okay, I can play that well. Yeah.
So the buzzwords here are responsible AI.
Yeah.
Let us really understand at least one example. What is irresponsible AI?
Ooh, irresponsible AI. All right. Here's an example. Good or bad, I don't know. Go type in fast food worker. Bring up Midjourney or any of those tools that can do generative AI and generate an image or a bunch of images of people, realistic ones, and type in fast food worker and see what comes up. I'm sure it'll come up in lots of different things. If you can, put on a filter or put on something that you get a bunch of very different images, so it's not just a slight change on each one. And what you will see is that predominantly in many of these tools, fast food worker equates to a person with brown skin that is often a certain gender and a certain age. And that is not responsible. Why? Because that isn't true, first of all. And it also is totally biased, right? It's biased data. Now, it doesn't mean that, that the company is evil or wanted it to happen that way, or thought, oh yeah, of course, it's fine. Every fast food worker is a brown woman of a certain age. It just turned out that the data that they trained it on, that's what it looked like, right? So that's not responsible AI. And I'll go a little bit further to say that when Olivia and I talked, this is how we clicked, and it hasn't been that long, a year or so, maybe.
Yeah, I think so.
It was the click was this idea of innovation, which is, hey, if that's not responsible, the responsible thing is, well, how do we find the guardrails on this thing and then innovate from there? And the guardrails constraints here, I come from a design strategy background. The constraints are the mother of invention, and so that would be my irresponsible thing, right? That's where it's not responsible AI.
And so the claim is that constraints means opportunity, right?
Opportunity.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And would your example have high alignment or low alignment? And first, can you describe what alignment is?
Yeah, so alignment, when we're talking about artificial intelligence and ethics or human values, is when our systems, our solutions are reflective of our human values. It's when they're in alignment with the impact that we want to create and also our intended use. So the example that Justin was given, the intended use probably wasn't, we're hoping, we're going to give them the benefit of the doubt, but wasn't to have a racist image set generated. Their intended use was probably to have a diversity of different images and be well representative. Well, because of the lack of guardrails and the lack of, let's say, innovative solution problem solving, what we got was a system that was not in alignment with what our intended use was and with those values that we wanted to embody.
Got it.
So
Got it.
misalignment, yeah.
Okay, so we've got education, intent, and then data, right?
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. Human, please.
Okay, so you were very vague about everybody you help and advise.
Some mystery.
Right. To understand you a little bit more, I would love to know what an insanely busy day looks like for you. And feel free to give specific companies you go to, and what time your morning would start and what time your day would end.
What kind of coffee you drink?
Yeah, what kind of all of it.
You're really trying to get the names here. Well, I actually live a double life. So I spend my spring and my fall over in Brussels, Belgium, and I spend my summer and winter here in California. I'm sure you can guess why the winter is here and not in Brussels. I also just flew over 5 days ago, so my voice is a little raspy. Turns out coming off of a plane and jumping straight into events and lots of community here gets you derailed a little bit in terms of having good vocal cords. But what my day typically looks like. Well, let me give you the Brussels side, since that's a little bit different than what my life looks like here. In Brussels, I'm typically up, a little bit later. I'm not up at the crack of dawn. I'm up at 8 or so in the morning. And at that point in time, I'm usually giving us a quick overview of what's on my plate for the day. Now, as an ethicist, I have to context switch quite often. So in some cases, I'm on with my team. I'm on talking about, hey, what's this new framework that we're developing? Right now, we're doing a lot of business development and strategy. So that's one brain cell going in that direction. Meanwhile, I've got another brain cell working on, I've got 3 or 4 client calls set up after this, where I'm advising on either constraints on a new product feature, or I'm advising on, hey, we've got these AI policies coming into place, or I am advising on, hey, maybe that's not the best use of AI, or how can we actually adopt this tool in a way that's going to stick with your team? From there, if I'm over in Brussels, then you'll find me quite often over in the European Parliament, kind of making my way around, chatting, talking to people, just getting a feel for where a lot of big name companies, but also where a lot of policymakers, where their mind's at for the future of AI, since we're seeing a lot of that impact come in. Now, I am human. So not human, but human. And at the end of the day, I always make sure that I'm either for your health. Yeah. Exactly. And still vague.
And dancing is good for you. We had Ken De Leon recently, and he said, dancing brings the highest degree of happiness to your body.
I would support that.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, give us an example of AI being weaponized, bastardized, too much DEI.
Staring at me.
He wanted to give you an easy one here.
No,
Or Justin could take that one.
Justin, you want to play bad cop again?
Honestly, I think that's a tough one. I don't know, but do you know of a good example of one being weaponized? I know of really good examples of AI and other just like technology that's just gone wrong because of not enough stuff has gone into it. Did you know like Kohler faucets, when the one you wave your hand over, originally same thing. If you were a brown person or a really dark skinned person, it wouldn't work for you because none of the engineers had figured out light sensor. Yeah, isn't that crazy? That's just a technology thing. Now, there was no malintent in that either. But weaponized, okay, here's a good example of weaponized. Ready? The good example of weaponized, and it's a really sad example, is in China, and there are cameras that we've now banned in the US that in the cameras were sensors and AI that would look for Uyghur people, right? So people also with brown skin generally, and perhaps wearing specific garb. And they found that in these cameras, and US intelligence folks, and actually private US intelligence folks, found it in these cameras, and of course, blew the whistle from here. So now you can't buy those cameras except probably in the black market. You can't buy those here. You should know though that they're Chinese cameras, and they were multi-brand cameras sold everywhere, and they were cheap, and so everyone in the US bought them too. And in there is pretty malicious bullshit, against a whole group of people. Yeah, sorry for bringing the room down. So that's what bad cop does. Good cop, go for it.
Just throwing you under the bus. Thank you. I think for me, when someone asks, what's an example of AI being weaponized, for me, I want to sit there and think, well, it kind of comes down to intention. And a lot of times, a lot of these companies have the right intentions. They just don't have the structures in place to fully realize those intentions. So it's less about weaponizing, and it's less about I'm setting out to do bad things for me. And it's more of we're operating in the Wild West. There weren't best practices 5-10 years ago in AI. Now we do have best practices. They're called responsible practices. But now that we have those practices, that helps us realize that intention. So I have a hard time pinpointing companies and saying, well, this is bad and you did bad here, because a lot of the times the people behind the scenes had good intentions. They just didn't have the structure and the processes and the infrastructure in place to bring those to life.
Right. Are you in favor of Congress and the political system legislating AI?
I think there is definitely a time and place for regulation, and it is important. It's not our saving grace, though. So as an ethicist, how we understand laws is the codification of our morals. So once we have a standard in our ethics, in our moral understanding, that's when it transitions into law. So for example, we've got the CCPA, we have the GDPR. Those are standards in privacy. We had to go through a lot of iterations and a lot of screw-ups to find out those standards. But once we figured out the standards, then we could move them into law. So regulation is important to get the baseline foundation. But as I tell my clients, if you are compliant, congratulations, you're one step above illegal. That does not mean that you're actually doing this ethically. There's a difference.
So at the introduction of your book, it says, to my fellow ethicists that I began this journey with back when no one would listen. Stay the course, we have their attention now. I read that and it gave me chills. So like what has changed? The climate is different. Help us understand.
So when I started off in ethics, when I would say that I was an AI ethicist, people would look at me like I had 4 eyes or something. And like, I don't know what that is. It's like, cool. All right, so we're starting from ground zero here. Yeah, exactly. And then when you say, I work with ethics, then all of a sudden it becomes, oh, you're here to tell me that I'm a bad person. I was like, also no, let's try this again. Then we went through the phase of, oh, you're a morally superior person. Also no, I screw up all the time. I am still human. But this is all to say, I've been in this space for a while. I've seen the ethics washing phases. I've seen the regulation phases. And now we're at a point in time, actually, thanks to the generative AI boom, that people are tuned in. They understand that AI ethics and responsible AI are the way forward for AI success, because it's not about the fluffy feel good at the end of the day. It's actually about creating technology that is designed for humans. It increases that adoption. It increases the actual impact that you're trying to drive. So when I say we have their ears now, is we have proof that this works, and we have the intention that wasn't necessarily there even 5 years ago.
And I thank you for that. And I think it's interesting, Justin, to take this back to a design perspective. When we do have constraints, like you can only use these 3 colors to draw, then all of a sudden you can, it gives you a little bit of like a boost of creativity, as opposed to starting from a totally open canvas with no direction. It can be a little daunting. So as a professor of design, how have you seen this play out with your students?
Yeah, we've got an alum now sitting over here, Michelle Zamora, who was also helpful in this book, helped design one of the frameworks for here. You know, it's interesting. We have seen this, first of all, when you work when you're a technologist and also an optimist and a designer working in an art school, when it comes to AI, there's 2 camps. One is they're stealing all my shit, and the other one's like, oh my God, these tools are amazing. You can imagine which camp I'm in.
Sure.
Definitely not. We've seen some really, really cool stuff going on. So not just art, not just art and design, but even speeding things up. So I teach a business model innovation class. This is what I write about. This is what I do. This is what I've been doing for 20 years. And I've now even reformatted my class. In fact, the one that Michelle took a year ago is going to be totally different next year, because I get to speed things up. Where I used to have the students build personas and write interview guides and then go out and interview people first and then update the interview guides. It's like, oh no, I'm going to have them build synthetic personas in AI, have AI build the interview guide, test it in AI, then go to real people. It actually speeds up the whole thing. So where I would have them spend a whole, I don't know, Michelle, like hours and hours on something like that with a value proposition canvas, now I get to speed that up and say, no. You're going to build that in a few prompts. You're going to really learn these prompts well. You're going to, ingrain those in how you do things from now on. And then once you have that, it may be wrong, and wrong is good. You'll only learn the wrong by going and testing with real humans. And the real humans will then give you the juice on that. But that's totally changed our perspective, at least those of us who think this is a really cool set of tools, because it's not just constraints, it's actually a whole new set of tools we can use, rather than going at everything with blank canvas. Yeah, it's fun.
All right, let's get back to you, Olivia.
I'm ready.
Tell me the differences between working here in the US and advising companies here and working in Europe.
Well, first of all, in Europe, lunches are about 2 hours long. Not the 30 minutes while you're on another call and you're trying to eat here.
This is why Human's asking, by the way. Lunch, 2 hours, got it. Yeah.
Got it, okay, penciling that in.
Yeah.
Exactly. So I would say in the US versus the EU, it is a very subtly different in terms of the work cultures. In the EU, the actual society itself is far more communal. So when it comes to any type of decision making in the EU, it's usually multiple people that you have to get in front of, depending on what country. For example, France, where you need to get everyone in the entire company itself to agree. Whether they actually have any impact or not, that's a different question. Thank you. I say that very lovingly. I've learned. Gotta go through the entire company, but you learn the different cultures. And in the EU, there's a lot of respect for different perspectives because of that, because it is a mash of all of these very different cultures coming together. So the work culture there is more communal. You're more looking at the group itself, and it's more open to different perspectives, rather than in the US, on the other hand, is more of an individualistic culture and approach. And I'm not saying one's better than the other, I'm saying they're different. The US has a strong force on innovation and move fast, and we'll move here and then we'll figure out what we did wrong and we'll try and fix it. The EU is much more hesitant. Also with the US, it's, okay, well, in my mind, this should work and I'm gonna go try it. Instead of, let me get the support and the buy-in from all of these people, I'm gonna go out and try it, and then I'll come back and I'll bring that information and we'll decide, yes, we wanna go in that direction. So it's a little bit different. I would say the US moves a lot faster. The US is a little bit slower for decisions and slower in terms of innovation, but I see in the EU, there's really fascinating depth of innovation in terms of each individual country. The US is really fascinating in terms of innovation on a horizontal scale, where it's at a bigger scale than really a lot of the EU can even fathom. So in a lot of ways, it's yin and yang in different directions.
Well, I was just going to say that this book is marvelous. Like it just grabbed me right away, and I think it would be really appropriate for folks at the leadership perspective, all the way down to more junior perspectives, to like understand how artificial intelligence and the responsible application is going to impact us. What are some of the unlocks or the surprising light bulb moments that folks have when you're counseling them, helping them understand these frameworks for success?
So I would say the biggest one, and this is echoed throughout that entire book, the biggest one is that responsible AI and AI in general is not primarily a technical problem. Which I know is a little ballsy to say sitting here in San Francisco, or not San Francisco, but the Bay Area, where everything is tech. A lot of the impact and the change levers that we have actually exist in the people and process beneath the surface. So what happens quite often, not only in responsible AI, but in AI, where companies and teams, and especially leadership, they'll look and they'll say, oh, there's the solution, there's the technical solution, and I can use it as a magic wand, and it's gonna solve all these problems. No, that's not how it works. Instead, what you have to do is you have to look below the surface. You have to look at who is either building or using your technology or AI, and then you're looking at the how, the process. How are they building or using? Those 2 points of contact, the people and the process, 9 times out of 10 have a bigger impact than the actual technical infrastructure that you're working with. Because if your people aren't aligned and they don't have the processes to actually bring that alignment into practice, then you better believe your technology is kind of helpless there. So I'd say that's probably, and I'm biased here, but that I would say is the biggest takeaway, because we have gone at this pace of technical innovation for the sake of technical innovation, forgetting that the entire purpose that we started off with this technical innovation was to drive human impact, the people and process beneath the scene.
That's beautiful.
I'm going to ask one more question, then we're going to open it up to the audience. So we'd love to hear from you. Let's pretend this event is over. Somebody runs up to you and says, oh my God, I love your book. I've listened to every podcast you've been on. You and Justin were amazing. How can I work with you? Are you available? Are you accessible or not?
Well, vaguely speaking. I am. So Justin and I are actually working on a workshop together, a workshop series, where we are combining design thinking and something called the Values Canvas, which Michelle actually helped build. The Values Canvas is a holistic management template when it comes to embedding values into an AI strategy. I myself, I do executive coaching and training. I also have a whole suite of services designed specifically around building AI strategies on responsible foundations, as well as product innovation in AI and how to use our human values as drivers for innovation when it comes to these new AI solutions. So actually, if you check out my website, something not vague.
Remind us what that is.
OliviaGambelin.com.
OliviaGambelin.com.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we're going to open it up. Who wants to ask the first question? All right. One of our favorite people.
Hello.
Hello.
My name is Poppy Gamblin.
Oh my goodness.
What a coincidence.
What a coincidence.
Exactly. So many gamblins.
Thank you so much for being here, Justin, Olivia, Nick, Human, Park James. Really appreciate creating this opportunity. As I am in the regulatory space, in the political space, and Human touched on this, and as we look ahead, what's going on in this space around introducing, offices that are going to oversee privacy, AI, all of these legislation that are coming out around this space. I mean, I think what a lot of common folk are struggling with is, how is AI even defined? You hear generative AI, you hear ethical AI. I mean, there's a lot of terminology. Can you help define that? What is AI for like a common person, like a legislator that is going to be making now policy to then regulate and, impede or promote? Thank you.
Great question.
Yeah. So if anyone didn't pick up, her last name is Gambelin. That is my aunt.
Is it true that you were the flower girl at her wedding?
I was the best flower girl.
Not just the flower girl. How dare you?
The best, the best. I think I was 3 or 4 years old, so, shining star. But Papia has been a huge mentor and supporter of mine, so that's a little shout out to Papia there. When it comes to defining artificial intelligence, it can be difficult, and it can be very difficult to sort through all of the noise, especially when it comes to regulators and policy, because it feels like there's a new development every single day. It's like, okay, we've got generative AI now, and now we've got a new LLM, and what does that mean? And GPT-5, that's coming, and what does that even mean? And so it can be quite overwhelming. So what I try and do is take it back to a human level when defining artificial intelligence. And for me, artificial intelligence, these systems are tools that enable us to spot patterns and habits and insight in our day-to-day, in our human nature and habits in a way that we as humans is naked to it's invisible to our naked eye. Our brains can't process the vast amount of data and information that AI does. And so for what that means for me and how I try and explain this is by creating these tools and these systems that ingest these vast amounts of information and look for patterns, look for connections, learn off of those patterns and grow, it's still learning a lot of human connections. It's learning these pathways that we as humans have already established, but we haven't necessarily been able to highlight or get insight into yet. So I don't know if that answers your question fully, but trying to humanize it, it's looking at the root of it, still people at the end of the day. The data is information based off of our human habits, our human behaviors. The information that AI systems is learning, the insights that it's pulling out, it's really highlighting new information, not new information, it's highlighting patterns and specific insights that are already in existence based off of our human nature. It's connections that we haven't yet seen.
I think that was super thorough and solid. The other thing is you could think of it as predicting or creating. It's like the fruit of the tree. Right?
Yeah.
So Piyush, please.
Hi, Olivia. So my name is Piyush Malik, and I've played with AI since the IBM Watson days, and implemented about 100 such systems. That said, each conference I go to today, I'm obviously on podcasts and publications. We hear about the fear of AGI. So the transition from AI to Gen AI to AGI to artificial super intelligence. How do you see yourself fitting in, and how does that apply to the common people out here who may be a little bit still afraid that AI is going to take their jobs?
Do you want to explain AGI first, and then?
Do you want to explain AGI first?
Yes. Explain it.
Yeah. Well, we can wrap.
We'll tag team this one.
AGI, artificial general intelligence, right? There's the idea that eventually, and then maybe it gets super intelligence. Eventually, that AI thinks like a human, acts like a human in superhuman ways, can do things as fast, if not faster. Certainly, it can do it faster than us, but also reasons like a human in ways that would also trick us, but also certainly be able to do anything that we can do, and probably better. Right? That's generally general intelligence.
Generally intelligence. We also, right now, we have narrow AI,
Right.
where we have very specific use cases and very specific actions that these AI systems can perform. AGI would be a system that you could just plop it in anywhere and it would start to function.
Right, like any good human could. Yeah, generally.
Generally, we hope so. We hope so. Sometimes questionable with the
Right.
humans as well.
Yeah.
But that's all to say. I actually really love that you bring this up, because for me as an ethicist and as a human, let's say, I really firmly believe that as we go forward into this new age of AI, we can't lose respect of our own humanity. So there are aspects to our human nature, for example, our emotions, our relationships, our connections with people, our ability to sit down face to face, and I can read your body language, I can read the emotions, I can read kind of the energy that you bring into a conversation. That's something that's not going to translate over to a system. And that doesn't mean it's any less important. I think there's a true, genuine value in that almost mysterious side of humanity, the parts that we can't touch, that we can't see. That has a huge impact, though, on who we are as people and how we interact. So with people that are afraid of AI taking their job, I would say, don't lose respect for your own humanity. But also, these systems are designed or should be designed to complement us. So the example that I use, I obviously like to write. 272 pages later, I would think I would hope to like to write. I did not use any generative systems or ChatGPT, et cetera, for any part of this book. Not because I am morally superior, no. It's because I find purpose and I find value and I find so much joy in being able to grow and nurture my own voice, to work on my own ideas, that it's not the right time and place to complement my work. Now, on the other hand, I'm terrible at writing any marketing material. So I use ChatGPT all the time to help me write one-pagers because it takes me forever. It's complementing my work there instead of taking over something that I find purpose and value in as Olivia. I have that relationship set up. And so for people that are afraid of AI taking over their jobs, I would challenge them and say, well, what relationship do you want to actually have with this technology? You're still in the driver's seat at the end of the day. How do you want to use these tools to complement your work, not replace what you're good at, not replace what you love to do, but help you actually do it better?
The term I use is augmented
Yeah.
augmenting human capability.
Yeah. This is exactly the same conversation we have at at this art school, right? Which is the half of us that believe in these tools believe in that, believe in the augmentation, having a partner to work with, to riff off of, to bring things to life, then to put on a human face on it. It's incredible. And of course, these are all human-made tools as well. So here we are, back to the beginning.
It all comes back to humans and human.
It do, and human, yeah.
You're right.
Outstanding panel. Totally enjoyed it. Actually, Piyush asked half of the question for me. I have a question for the entire panel. The question is, do you believe in AGI? If you do, when do you think it's going to be here?
You want to go? Go. Yeah, I have an idea.
I would say that I believe in AGI in the sense that, yes, probably one day we will have these systems that you can pick up and put into any scenario. I don't believe in AGI in the sense of it's going to completely replace people or it's going to be as functioning as people. For the reasons I was saying there, there's more to humanity than just our logical intelligence. We have emotional intelligence, we have ethical intelligence, we have spatial intelligence, and there's more to us than just that logical reasoning that we are doing a fantastic job of building into these systems. So yes and no.
I think we're on the event horizon. I think AGI is maybe years away, maybe less. And to Olivia's point, I think it does mean drop in something that can functionally do someone's job. Generally, anything that would take human thought to do, but I don't think that it's the dangerous thing that we make it out to be. But yeah, I think we're on the event horizon, and we see that because AI now creates AI faster and faster and faster and faster. So and we don't even know how that works, which is kind of fascinating. Yeah.
Who's next? Oh.
Good afternoon. From a green perspective, do you foresee any environmental issues with all the electricity, all the power that is going to be generated with all this AI? That it's like blockchain. It's creating a larger percentage of our electrical grid, and maybe from an ethics perspective, say, you know what, I'm going to just make a phone call and talk to somebody versus trying to do something on AI, ChatGPT, or whatever, because it takes up a lot of extra energy. Any thoughts on that? Thank you.
I will totally pick this one up because I think this is a fantastic example of how we can actually use our values as constraints to drive innovation. So I'm going to flip it on its head a little bit. We can't continue down the path that we're going. We can't keep building and building and collecting larger data sets and building larger systems the way that we are. We don't have the infrastructure. We quite literally don't have the resources. We have constraints, sustainable constraints. So we want to continue in the direction of building that we are headed. We can't continue in terms of the environmental impact that we're creating with this. So we're going to have to get creative here. So I see actually a great opportunity here for companies and for innovators to look at these constraints and say, all right, how are we actually going to continue down the road of development that we are, but doing it differently in a way where we can reduce those environmental impacts?
Can I?
Yeah, go.
So I read this morning about the environmental impact of AI, and tell me, are you pro or against the Googles and the Oracles and the Facebooks building these mini nuclear plants to power the AI? And if you don't want to answer that, you don't have to.
That's a tricky question.
I'm for it. Yeah. I think well, there's two parts to this question. Going back to the other one, which is we're at the very beginning now. You know, I'd say it's also not economically feasible, not just environmentally feasible. It's not economically feasible to keep expanding the way that we do with these data centers. It's because we're at the very beginning of this thing, especially with generative AI and specifically with generative AI. But you're already now seeing the innovation from that constraint. You know, Apple now 6 months ago released this small language model, an SLM, that can sit on a chip inside of an iPhone that basically performs as fast as the big GPT models that OpenAI is running. Now, is it as broad? No, right? But does it do more or less the same things? Yes. And that was built for security, but also built it's Apple. So okay, now what could we do on our own chips? Now we're not talking about, huge data centers. We're talking about the thing in your pocket that was already a supercomputer doing something more. But on the other side, a small nuclear plant, I think we have to do everything we can do to move in that direction, into any direction. There's no single right solution that's going to head us down on the path of stop using coal and other things. There's just many, many options out there. And nuclear may be one, small nuclear plants. Certainly we know that solar is one, and wind is one, and hydro is one, and all these other solutions are out there as well. And by the way, go look up the statistics on, it's scary shit, nuclear, when it gets out of control. Go look up the statistics on how many deaths, but also how many sicknesses and cancer have been caused by nuclear plants versus coal, right? And coal, you'll see it's the thousands and thousands of times more deadly, and not just to the people who work in coal mines, to all of us and everyone who lives within 100 miles of a coal mine. They all have black lung. Right, they all have the same maladies that the people in the coal mine have. And when you look at nuclear plants, we've had a couple meltdowns, and the worst one, being in Russia. And still, you look at the deaths and even destruction and cancer from that. It's that. Now, does it matter? It matters. It matters. Death matters. But it's if you get further with this stuff, it evens itself out.
So, so maybe nuclear needs a better PR guy. Speaking of PR guys, we've got Nicholas Adams right here.
Sorry, did you want to go for it?
No, that was good. That was
okay,
good. Yeah.
Sorry. Okay, we didn't talk about that.
Sorry, let Nick ask a question.
Thank you.
What a tee up. That's very kind of you. What a phenomenal panel, by the way. Thank you very much for educating all of us this evening. I'm curious, and maybe this is in your book, Olivia, but I haven't read it yet since it was just released in the US today. I need to buy a copy this evening. I'm curious if there is a formula that you use that is a sort of go-to formula as you deploy ethical conversation, behavior, consulting practice around so many of these issues. And if there is a go-to formula that either you use, that you are, borrowing from someone else, or if there's something for those in the room and those listening online, if there's something that you would contribute as a formula, right? For example, in Rotary International, the world's largest service organization, there's the four-way test, right? Of those values, right? The value system. What do you use and what could others use? How do we deploy that?
Well, you did predict it. This is in the book. I have actually a couple different formulas and frameworks in the book. I think one of the first ones that you run across is how to determine your foundational value set. So when people ask you whose values are these, there's actually a methodology for distilling, this is the value set that I'm going to embed into our systems. The big one, though, and it's great to have Justin sitting next to me and Michelle in the audience here, is actually called the Values Canvas that I've been talking about. And you can actually download that. It's thevaluescanvas.com. It's a free-to-use holistic management template. And what it does is it goes through the 3 pillars of responsible AI in general. People, process, technology, and it's pinpointing in each of those pillars the 3 high impact points that you first of all need in place to be able to have any kind of control over the AI you're either building or adopting. But second of all, it's also the impact points that you can translate values, human values, into practice. So it becomes that formulaic template for designing and developing an AI strategy based on those human values that we're after here. And Justin thankfully loaned me 4 of his students, Michelle was one, to help with the development of this tool. When I first started working with the students, it was this terribly drawn pyramid. Terribly drawn.
I didn't want to tell you it was terribly drawn, but there was a wink in there and was like, Michelle, do you need help with this?
There was a lot of kind words said, Olivia, let go of the pyramid. We got me to let go of the pyramid. And we went through actually a whole iteration process. I think it was about 2 months that we did this over, where we took it from that terribly drawn pyramid into, if you're familiar with the business model canvas, same similar thinking. There's prompts within that canvas itself. It pinpoints what kind of solutions you need, when and where. And it's interactive if you want it to be. You can pull out some Post-it notes. We've done that with the CCA students and have actually developed an AI strategy off of that. And so it's a fantastic template tool. You can use it on specific projects, or you can actually use it on the organization as a whole. It's very adaptable in that sense.
And what I would add to that is it's made, Post-its, of course, made to be co-creative, right? So,
Yes.
I mean, AI strategy is not a one-person job, right? And it's certainly not responsible AI strategy. Would you say it's a multi-person job,
It's
a company job? Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think something to stress here too, it's not only people across leadership, but to actually work with the people that are needing to implement these solutions. So your engineers, your design team, the more closely you can design these solutions with the teams that actually need to use them, the more likely they're going to adopt those solutions, the more ownership and authority they're going to feel over those solutions, and the more receptive they're going to be to actually championing them. This counts for the use of AI tools and the build of them and the embedding of the ethical values all around.
Hi, thank you very much for creating such a perfect human being, your AI. And I'm curious, there is a lot of bad guys around in different parts of the world. They also don't sleep, they also create their AI. What do you do to prevent this bad AI spoil your cute AI?
Well, I can pick this up. On one hand, we do have regulations that are helping, but for me, and I think, Nick, you coined this term about me a year or two ago, I'm an optimistic ethicist, which means when it comes to those bad actors, what I like to say is it's not necessarily my job. I can't control them. I have no impact there. I'm not going to be useful to them. They're not going to be receptive to any of my work. Where my work matters is with the companies that are truly leading on the edge of AI. So for me, it's less about trying to control bad actors and more about enabling the true leaders and the true vanguards of AI to be able to showcase this is how it's done well. Because it's been such a Wild West, we have a lot of these examples of AI gone wrong. Well, what would happen if we actually had all of these examples of AI gone right in a way that's reflective of this human impact, in a way that's successful, not values or ethics versus profit, what is it called? Principles versus profit, but principles and profit at the same time. And this is actually true, where we can use these values to drive profit on a different scale than we have before. That becomes, to me, the actual way to impact and change those bad actors, because bad actors are usually after the profit. Well, if ethics is profitable, and it is profitable, then it becomes less of a good versus bad decision in terms of morality and more of this is a good business decision and this is a bad business decision.
Hi, thank you guys so much for the panel. So I'm curious, to what extent do you think that the red teaming that the big AI labs today are doing aligns with your definition of responsible AI?
Can I go again?
Go for it, yeah.
Okay. I'm hogging the mic here.
Yeah, doing great.
Remember, I'm the bad cop, so
Yeah,
it's fine.
This is true. So actually part of what's built into the values canvas is a section called domain, where domain is specifically focusing on getting those feedback loops. Red teams are a great example of that, and this is actually kind of a false dichotomy that people fall into when thinking about responsible AI and ethics, is that it's an all or nothing practice, that you either have to do everything perfect all at once or just like don't touch it. Instead, responsible AI, just as AI, it's an incremental process. It's something that we have to learn. It's something that we have to test. And so having red teams to actually be able to stress test and give that feedback, live feedback, is a great practice in getting the, oh, that didn't work, let's fix it, approach that's needed to be able to develop these tools to grow and learn alongside with them.
And I'll add on to that a little bit. And we had been talking about this as a group too, which, none of this is really, AI and where we're at with generative AI certainly is new. But if you look at history, and certainly technology history, mobile came about. I was working at Oracle in 2000, and mobile started coming out and started to become a thing. And our customers started to ask about it. And eventually we started to think, oh, we should probably be mobile first, right? In other words, if we're thinking about building all these tools and whatever, it's mobile first. And then we had red teams who were testing every page for mobile. But by the way, we had to make sure they were Section 508 compliant too, because what if someone's using a mobile and they are hard to, they can't see very well? Great. Keep moving forward. Then we have, okay, now we have mobile and now we have hackers. And so security becomes a thing. And now not only are we mobile first, we're security first, right? Which means there's no longer just one team developing security solutions. Every team, every development team has a group of people who are responsible for, and probably everyone at this point is responsible for developing secure solutions to everything, right? Because it can't just be one team in there. And now we're at AI, and you're starting to see something similar. Okay, there's red teams who are doing all the heavy stress testing. My assumption, right, and this is not a good one maybe, but it's a one built on where we've been, is that these red teams, and it certainly will also just be part of every other team, because we're now going to be mobile first, security first, and AI first, which means you're always thinking about it. You're always thinking about the biases. You're always thinking about how to make it better. You're always thinking about it, how it can help people more, perhaps without bias, right? Whatever it might be. In the same way you're thinking about this better be secure, this better be mobile enabled, for right? All those same things, and eventually it's a paradigm, and then we're on to the next one, right? So, but yeah, I mean, we need the red teams to do the stress testing until we don't need them anymore, and
then they're on to the next stress
test. And then they're on to the
testing
next stress test.
I got it. Can't wait to read your book. This has been fascinating. Thank you. I'm child free by choice, and when I'm on a date and the guy
Me
goes,
too.
right? I mean, I think that's a smart way to go. I'm on a date and he's like, do you have any kids? I'm like, no. He goes, well, who's going to take care of you when you're old? And I say, robots. Okay, so my question is, are there going to be some robots with the ethical AI in the next 5 to 20 years?
You're like, come on.
So specific. So specific.
I would
Yes.
Say, yes. I would say they're already in development, and keep your eyes open.
I'm counting on the same, so we'll connect on that one.
Anyone else? Yes.
Oh, hi. Let me ask another question where the answer is definitely in the book. So I work for a company called Better Brain that connects to all of a company's data sources and automates workflows using AI. For companies like our customers who want to benefit from implementing AI without having to develop a sophisticated, detailed understanding of it, what are the key things they should be thinking about to make sure they're doing that in a responsible way?
That is also in the book, but I just sound like a broken record at this point. I would say actually one of the biggest points here, because I can list off multiple pieces here, but I think the biggest one, it comes back to intention. What is your intention for this tool? And I'm seeing this right now across quite a handful of my clients that are bringing in a lot of generative AI tools without having an intention behind them. And so they're sat there with this very expensive investment in AI, and now they're going, okay, do something, or they're like poking it, saying, please do something. They didn't necessarily bring it in with an intention, with a problem to solve. It comes down to almost a layer of awareness of what do we actually need these tools for? What problem is it going to solve? How are we going to adopt this? What often happens in, let's say, the misuse of AI, but not the intentional misuse of AI, is when there is that lack of intention, when you're trying to fit a tool to a scenario, to a problem that it's not designed to do. So for example, you can't take a system that was designed for allocating credit loans and apply it to a healthcare use of who gets cancer treatment or not. It wasn't designed for those specs. And so you need to have that understanding of what are the specifications that we need this tool to fit to. And that's the intentions behind it is the just huge underlying current of all of these different ways that you can adopt it responsibly. But if you don't know those intentions going in, it's going to be a lot of wasted time and money and potentially a lot of harm that comes out of that.
All right. I have a question. Can people buy your book today? What's happening with your book today, here?
It is right over in the corner. You can buy it.
Who's that gentleman holding up that sign?
That's the other Tall Peter.
Okay.
So we've got Tall Peter 1, Tall Peter 2.
All right. So your book is available
Yes.
today
yes.
to purchase.
It is right.
And will you sign it?
If you say please.
All right. All right. We have time for one more question. Who wants to take us out with a killer? Sir, you already asked. You want to do it too?
It was such a good one.
You're that good, huh? All right. You can.
So good.
Thank you kindly. Back in my day, when I was in high school or younger than that, if I had a question, I had to look up something in a dictionary or an encyclopedia. Younger generations, they have everything at the tip of their hands, and some of us that are older sometimes think the younger generations are getting dumber and dumber to a certain degree. Are you concerned that maybe AI will just not let these younger generations think, or just
Wally.
any thoughts on that?
That's a good question.
Can I run with this one? All right. So I think we are at this crux of a time where we actually need to change fundamentally how we think, both in the workplace and in our research, because thanks to tools like generative AI, it's no longer information recall that we're based on. It's actually the ability to critically engage and prompt to get the information that you need back. It doesn't mean that you're getting dumb. It means that we're actually having to rethink how we think, So the new generations, the younger generations, I would say they're definitely not dumb at all. I've got my youngest brother who's hidden here somewhere. I'm looking around for him. But I've listened to him and his girlfriend have conversations about how they know how to influence their algorithms on Instagram. They are approaching thinking about technology in a completely different way that a lot of us of older generations didn't even conceptualize. I think the important part to make sure that we don't become dumb is to focus on that critical thinking aspect. That is the game changer going into this new era, being able to critically engage with information, ask good questions, and take and grow off of the information that's given instead of just regurgitating facts that were already there.
Yeah, I think we have one more.
Yeah, one more. Sorry. But yes, first of all, I agree that I have two of my elder kids in college, and I see how their bright minds learn to ask the right questions that we wouldn't even think about on their age, and I think that's fantastic. My question to you is regarding back on the sustainability aspect of AI. Right now, we don't have really transparency for that. Like, we are asking the questions, we are using AI, but how big carbon footprint with that we cause, we have no idea that, oh, we're using AI for this and this and this, and now we have like flown over to China basically with our carbon footprint. Do you think that there will be more transparency on this? Or like, I know Google is working, they're having their data centers installed in Finland, for example, because it's more sustainable there since the cooler weather and so forth. And AI is being used for Equinix data centers here in the Sunnyvale to facilitate better, but when will we as people, customers, have the transparency for that?
I would say we're headed in the direction of having more transparency. The regulations are quite literally forcing us to be able to disclose a lot of this information, but the tricky thing about transparency is there's a difference between giving as much information as possible and giving the relevant information. And so for me, and I don't have an answer to this right now, but for me, the interesting point that I think we need to pay attention as we go forward is how are we defining and asking for that transparency? Because if we're asking for the ability to look at our entire data sets, I'm not even going to know what to do with all the data sets that are in existence on me. Instead, I need to know what kind of questions to ask to get the transparent information back. So I'd say we're headed in the direction of regulation forcing a hand in more transparency. But I would say us as individuals looking at and asking ourselves, well, what does that mean for us? What kind of transparency, what information do I actually want and need?
Beautiful, and that's a great place to wrap. Thank you so much. We do want to give a quick shout out to Laurent, the wellbeing.ai CEO, who's also here from Europe. Yeah. So if you're trying to tackle burnout, if you're in HR and you're trying to tackle burnout and use biometrics and really cool next generation technology, talk to this guy. In fact, he's got a demo for us. Also, if you haven't eaten at the Park James, it's exquisite, it's delicious, it's a surprise how fantastic it is every time. Yes. Well, sorry?
She wants you to get the fish tacos.
The fish tacos, yes. That's on the secret menu for Sandra, I guess. Okay, the fish tacos are amazing.
Does Laurent want to say something?
Yeah, Laurent, do you want to, please?
Well, I'm from Brussels. It's summer and I'm in California, right? Now, I'd like to come back on, okay, the good thing of Europe and then accelerating that stuff in the US. That's why we're here for. So we're starting the business development and lead generation activities with some partners over here for wellbeing.ai. So looking forward to that.
Thank you, Laurent. And lastly, take us off here. Congratulations on the book. Is there anybody that you want to thank?
The amount of people that went into the making of this book, it's endless. I mean, the acknowledgements page does not do justice to the amount of support and community that went into the making of this book. But I would love to spend just a brief moment, and I know you're probably itching to get up and walk around, but I'd love to spend a brief moment and thank you all for being here. I am someone that doesn't typically pause and celebrate milestones when they happen. I finished the manuscript for this book back in December. The next day I boarded a plane to come back to San Francisco, and I was on to the next project. So this is a rare moment for me to be able to pause and say, I wrote the damn book. Yeah. And so it really means a lot to me to be able to celebrate this with you. I have friends and family, I have colleagues, I have clients, I have everyone in between in this room. And this is a unique, really truly unique moment for me to be able to sit here and I guess just say thank you.
Right. Well, they'll both be here if you want to come up and say hi and ask questions and get your book signed. Be sure to tune in on July 16th. We'll have the next event here at the Park James. So
What is it about?
it's the story of things before we get them. So like understanding the supply chain. So pretty fascinating stuff. So until then, take care of yourselves and take care of each other. Thank you so much for joining and have a great rest of the evening. See everybody.